Hello everyone, yassas, merhaba, and welcome to From Root to Vine. For this episode, we're on location for a 2-day extravaganza at the Cypriot Wine Festival and Business Expo, which took place back in June. The Cypriot Wine Festival is the biggest global Cypriot event outside of Cyprus and has been a staple of the community here in the UK for the past 40 years. Through live music, dance, traditional cuisine and wine, it offers a perfect insight into the wonderful vibrancy and warmth of Cypriot culture. It also serves as a necessary reminder of the importance of coming together to ensure our heritage continues to thrive in the UK. All of the conversations you will hear discuss diaspora Cypriot identity. Whilst I was joined by a diverse group of guests, all with unique stories to tell, one thing remains the same throughout. Being Cypriot is cemented in uniqueness and love, and pride for our roots is at the heart of it all. I couldn't think of a more perfect place for our first live podcast event, and it was a real privilege to be part of it. Phoebe, hello!
Hi!
Welcome to From Root to Vine.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is so nice because I feel like we've been Instagram friends for like a couple of years now, and it's the first time we're meeting in real life.
Yes, and it's the first time I've ever been actually to a Cypriot event in the UK.
Really?
Ever.
Because you just moved to London. Where were you before?
I've been everywhere. I've been in Austria, I've been for a year in Durham and Milton Keynes, I've lived in Cyprus for 4 years, and I've lived in Leicester for my first 18 years of life. So I've been around.
So you've been around, and now you're finally in London, so you're at the heart of it. Is this your first time at the Wine Festival?
Yeah.
Oh, welcome. It's so nice to have you on.
Thank you so much.
I've been wanting to speak to you for a while, and it's so nice that we're doing this in real life. First of all, I'd like to just get a bit of background about my guests. So I wonder if you can tell me a bit about you, your Cypriot roots, your family Cypriot roots, all of that good stuff.
Okay, great. I'm half English, half Greek-speaking Cypriot. Well, I don't actually speak Greek, so it's a weird
It's all right,
phrase
me
for
neither. It's fine.
But also my family ancestry in Cyprus. We come from 3 main areas. So Labithos or Lapta in the north, Agros, the mountains, but also the city, Nicosia. So we've got the sun, we've got the beach, we've got everything.
Yeah,
we've got everything.
Did you spend a lot of time in Cyprus when you were growing up?
Yes, for most of the summers I was there, but sometimes 2 or 3 times a year I was there as well. All my family lived next to each other. My aunties, my grandma, my mum and my dad now live in Cyprus again. And I think my ancestry is a bit different because I know for a lot of the Cypriot diaspora, they've been here for a few generations. But for example, my mum lived in Cyprus most of her life, and she only came to the UK to study, and then she came back to Cyprus, and then she married my dad so she could stay here, and that's how it happened.
Okay. Yeah, that is quite different because the usual thing I think for a lot of diasporas, the parents came over or grandparents in like the 60s, 70s, and then they're like me, I'm 3rd generation.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a bit different. That's really interesting. I can hear your Midlands accent. You said you spent the first 18 years of your life in Leicester. What was your experience like being a Cypriot in the Midlands? Because obviously in London, it's basically Little Cyprus, especially in North London, and you have everything to do with Cypriot culture in London. What was it like being in the Midlands?
I have to be honest, I never really got the chance to be exposed to Cypriot culture for a very long time, until randomly when I went with my mum, who's Cypriot, to the doctors in Leicester. And the doctor was Cypriot, and he goes, are you Cypriot? And my mum said, yeah. And then he goes, we have a community here, and she had no idea. He invited me and my twin sister, Eliana, to go and learn Greek at the Greek school. But we were a lot older at this point.
Right.
And when we started learning Greek, we were with really, really young kids.
Yeah.
They were being taught Greek like in the home. But my mum, I think she wanted us to assimilate easier. And so she thought it was best just to speak English in the household. And so it was a lot more difficult for me and my sister to even fit in at the Greek school. And again, it wasn't Cypriot culture. We were taught Greek dance, we were taught Greek history, and the only thing I actually heard about Cyprus at the Greek school was the following sentence, and it's quite horrific, and I hope it's changed now at this place. Turkey invaded Cyprus in 1974. They raped and killed your family members, and they're still conquering us today. That was all I was told. So I was like, what? And when I told my mum, she was like, they're saying these things.
Yeah.
And we didn't stay that long there. but they have a Greek Orthodox church right next to it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it was heavily influenced with the church as well.
Yeah, it is.
And one thing I remember is being one of the Rose Girls for Easter Basca and stuff. And so at that point, I felt kind of connected to something, but I felt something was severely missing in my identity. But I didn't know that at that point yet.
Yeah.
So that's how far it goes in Leicester for me.
Do you know what? I think that's a really typical experience. First of all, Greek school, it's a tough time. I also didn't go to Greek school. My mum didn't force me to go to Greek school. She also was like, we'll let you assimilate with English, So I felt like I missed out on that as well. But, you hear some horror stories and it's really tough, because all you get told is Greek propaganda, Greek nationalism. You barely get anything to do with Cyprus. And then you get told awful propaganda about Turkey and Turkish Cypriots. So I don't think it's the best place to start your, Cypriot education. But you're right, I always felt that growing up. I was like, I kind of know I'm from this island called Cyprus where we're Greek, but we're not really Greek because we're not from Greece. I felt like there was something missing, but I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
But I was kind of, when you're young, you're not mature enough to kind of really.
Yeah, I didn't think deeply about it.
Yeah.
I just felt something's not right here. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, I completely resonate with that. So how has that influenced your understanding of your identity now, kind of as you've grown up?
The thing that actually made me start actually being open to viewing myself as Cypriot, because even at the time I thought, well, they're calling me Greek at Greek school, so I must be Greek. I didn't understand until I started speaking more to my family members. And also when I lived in Cyprus for 4 years, so my family, my mum and my dad and my sister and me, we moved to Cyprus before I turned 18, so I studied at university there.
Oh, okay.
So I lived there for 4 years because I also worked there afterwards. And living there, I started questioning more about who I am, because it was a bit difficult because I went to a British university, but a lot of the Cypriot community there didn't class me as Cypriot. They told me, you don't speak Greek, so you're not a Cypriot.
Yeah.
They told me I don't have a Cypriot name, but I was christened in Cyprus, and the priest told me I have a Cypriot name. And it's named after a saint, so I just want to
that's
put
true.
that out.
That is, that is named after a saint.
I got told even by teachers, no, your name's not Cypriot, it's not even Greek. There's only Phevos, it's a male thing. I was like, it's not true, but anyway, that's a side thing. And from there, after my university degree, I felt like I need to actually start reaching out to Cypriots online. That are comfortable speaking to me in English, because obviously there's a language barrier sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
And I started learning from them some incredible Instagram pages, the Cypriot story, and from these things I started being like, whoa, we have so much in common with so many different communities, and it's such a diverse and unique and special thing to be Cypriot. Why haven't I been taught this before?
Yeah.
And why are we boxing ourselves in like this? We have unlimited potential when we join and realize how incredibly special we are, but we're really boxing ourselves in, and it really saddens me. And from that's how I've decided I'm Cypriot, British Cypriot, because I am half English, but even that is complicated for me as well, because in school in Leicester, even though I'm white, I was kind of profiled, which you would be surprised by looking at me. Someone said to me, which is not even true because I'm not Greek. They said in class, they shouted across the room, "Oh, why don't you go and smash a plate or something?" I was like, what? They said, "Oh, Phoebe's the one with the crazy eyebrows, the big nose.
Yeah.
Why do you look like Homer Simpson?" Because I had more of an olive tone at the time.
Yeah.
They were saying the most crazy stuff. They even said, "I wish you get deported back to Greece."
Oh my God.
I was just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I don't fit there, and I don't fit sometimes in the Cypriot spaces as well. I've been told that I haven't got the right to talk about Cyprus because I'm half English.
Wow.
And I understand the connotations because of the colonization, and I understand the hurt. But it sometimes makes me feel like that's why I'm also nervous to talk about on the podcast today, because I know that there might be some people messaging me saying, well, why do you think you can talk about this?
Well, don't worry, because I will be replying if we get any of those messages. That's really disappointing that you had some of that experience. It's a really difficult space, isn't it, when you're like Cypriot and you're like an ethnic minority, but you're white appearing or you're white passing, and you don't really know like where you fit in. I definitely got it a lot at school as well, where people didn't really know like where to place me with the other like groups. And again, classic things like you got a big nose, you're hairy. It's just like the Cypriot girls throughout history hear that, and it's like, when are you going to get a new joke? We get it. I'm hairy. I've got a big nose. We understand. It's a common struggle. It's a very big common struggle. So how do you define your Cypriot identity now?
As in, like, the title of what I would call myself?
Not necessarily the title, just, your affinity to it, if it comes with the title.
I call myself different things. It depends on the context, to be honest. Sometimes I just say I'm Cypriot or British Cypriot, but sometimes context is needed to say that I'm from the Greek-speaking community. For example, I was interviewed with T-Vine, a Turkish magazine, and I purposely mentioned that I'm a British Greek-speaking Cypriot or Greek Cypriot because I wanted to show on this publication that there are Greek Cypriots that really want to connect with other communities. And I don't always agree with some of the publications, for example, but I wanted to put myself in a space where there's a different voice out there. So sometimes it's context-based. Yeah,
definitely. I totally agree. So you're quite heavily involved in a lot of grassroots initiatives, youth activism, especially like digitally on social media, which is really great. And I'm really glad that it's so accessible as we're moving into like the more like media space with social media. Why is that kind of grassroots community activism important?
I think it's really important because I feel so many people, including myself at some point, we feel really disillusioned by the people at the top on all sides, trying to deal with problems. We've been asking for solutions to things for like decades, for a long, long time, and we have the power as people, and we can inspire other people to take action. And sometimes when you actually look someone in the eye from another community in person or online and speak to them, have these hard conversations, you realize we have shared trauma. We have a lot to bond about, and no one else is going to understand our situation more than us. And until it can be uncomfortable and it can be difficult, but without these conversations and without helping, like for example, I've helped a few marginalized groups, and they've come back to me and said, like, no one's even asked me about my experience with colorism and racism in Cyprus before. And I never thought someone would, especially like I'm just a random person, like, and they were surprised and they felt actually listened and heard for the first time.
Yeah, totally. It's so simple, but like we miss it all the time, and it's like, why do we not just like speak to each other more and share our stories? Well, that follows on nicely, because I was going to ask you about kind of what we can do to like elevate and share stories from voices in the diaspora, voices on the ground in Cyprus. I think there's a real danger of feeling like, we're removed from issues, especially on the island when you don't live in Cyprus, and it's not really our problem. It's just happening like in the motherland, but it's not really got anything to do with us. And that's obviously a real privilege of being part of a diaspora. But what can we do to like elevate those voices and those stories?
I think there's quite a few things you can do. For example, the incredible thing that you're doing today, even getting the diaspora as a collective to talk about things and realize that we also have a responsibility to rep ourselves and to get other people to understand what Cyprus is, because there's a lot of confusion.
There's a lot of confusion.
A lot of weird stereotypes that can be really harmful as well to our community. So we, as a diaspora outside of Cyprus, can activate our like strength and our voice that way, which you're doing with your incredible podcast as well.
Thank you.
But apart from that, I really want to emphasize this. Like, there's so many little online communities. For example, the one I'm doing, Bubble Out, where we are arranging online discussions about specific topics to do with Cyprus related to mistreatment. Joining in these conversations, or if you don't feel comfortable to do so, we have a form where you can actually literally type in and share your story. And these are for people that it's accessible to people living on the island who were temporarily living on the island. So students, migrants, refugees are welcome. The diaspora, any holiday makers that have experienced mistreatment. So I think your activism has to be as inclusive and as accessible as possible. And on top of that, language is really, really important. I have noticed a trend at the moment, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. I think there are some spaces and a need to sometimes use professional jargon.
Yeah.
But sometimes the heavy use of academic words or it becomes more of an essay and it's not accessible to people. And I've had a lot of messages from people saying, can you tell me what this post is about?
Yeah.
I really want to understand, for example, the history of colonization in Cyprus, but I don't understand what the words are.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the thing that I think the diaspora can help with, because we have so many, we have great language ability, not me, but other people in the diaspora, and we can help with translation, and we can act as a bridge between so many communities.
Yeah, totally. You're so right about the inaccessibility of language sometimes. It's so academic. Even me, I find it so inaccessible sometimes. I read it and I'm like, that is so many long words and long complex sentences, and I don't understand anything you've just said. So yeah, I think breaking it down, making it more accessible but easier to digest is really, really useful. And I think the power of kind of social media is doing that, because a lot of it is just everyday people posting their content about whatever issue they want to talk about, and it's there for everyone to access, which is really great. You mentioned Bubble Out, which is a safe space for people who have experienced mistreatment in Cyprus, and you're backed by the UN in Cyprus and the British Council. Why is something like Bubble Out an important organisation to have for Cypriots?
Thank you for mentioning Bubble Out. I just wanted to clarify, it was created under the auspices of the UN and British Council under the Young Leaders in Action programme,
right.
But it's no longer associated with them. They helped with funding for the initial project. Bubble Out is so important because as humans, we tend to stay in our own bubbles and not branch out and speak to other people in other communities. And as Cyprus is such a diverse and unique place, and we have so many stories to tell, from trauma, history, war. We have so many things. And a lot of the time we feel like we're not being heard. We may speak at the coffee shops and things like that, but we want to get our voices out there in a safe way. So sometimes people want to stay anonymous, which is completely fine. And we're giving a platform for people to do that, and bringing people together to have discussions in a safe space with a certified psychologist, and we are providing support services post sharing your story as well, because psychological support is necessary. And I feel like in Cyprus, especially when I was living there, young people, marginalised groups do not have easy access to psychological support. On top of that, finding out information for resources is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And we've been told that Bubble Out is seemingly one of a kind. It's going to take a while for it to get into its emotion and to get popular, because we tend to keep hidden trauma to ourselves, especially because we've suffered so much from generational trauma. A lot of the time, we're not even aware.
Oh, totally.
How deep and how deep-rooted it goes. And so I think it's really important, Bubble Out, because it's the start of people really recognizing self-awareness, self-reflection, because then we can really start to be open-minded to other people and realizing, wow, we really do have the same trauma, and we can bond from this and really work together.
Yeah, totally. I think it's such a cultural thing as well, of especially with Cypriots, of just we as a community, we speak so much, so much, but rarely do we speak about the deep-rooted important things. And there's a very strong Kofinou culture where you're at the coffee shop and you might be saying things, you might make a passing comment, and it's ooh, you should speak about that more, or you should address this more, or this needs some work for you. And it's completely cross-generational, like you said. So I think it's a really important cultural shift in helping people, and hopefully the fact that it's anonymous, it's really easy, it can just be a form online, will help people come out of their shell a bit more and express themselves.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to also say, talking about or criticizing an experience that you've had in Cyprus does not mean that you haven't got a love for your country. Because I've had messages from people saying, how dare you paint a bad image of Cyprus by me talking about, I don't know, sexual harassment experience that I've experienced. And I really want to say, trying to help the evolution of a country is pure love for the country. Caring about all communities on the island, and not just someone that looks like yourself, and keeping quiet because it's more convenient for you. that's the easy way out, and that's not true love for your country, because you want everyone to feel safe, comfortable and heard in your country. And I really wanted to emphasize that, because I don't think a lot of people in the activist space get it either.
Yeah.
We sometimes only talk about issues that are easier to talk about, or
absolutely.
issues that only care about ourselves.
Yeah.
I feel that I relate a lot actually to the Turkish-speaking community, because when I speak to them, a lot of the time they have told me that they don't feel like, they get told a lot that they're not true Cypriots, for example, and I get told the same thing. So that's why I really encourage people to have these difficult conversations and put yourselves in uncomfortable positions, because you actually end up so much love and like respect for so many more people afterwards.
You're so right about kind of those are really, really difficult conversations where people might think it's like you're tarnishing the name of a nation or an island. But it doesn't do that. It just helps the island completely. Particularly what I've seen in your work and a lot of other like community activism that happens, especially around like the migrant experience in Cyprus, especially like refugees and asylum seekers that are seeking like solace in Cyprus. Like, it's almost this really weird like seedy like thing that we shouldn't talk about. And we know that like refugees and exist, but no one like speaks to them, no one interacts with them. I've heard some really, really harmful things in Cyprus about them. When I was in Cyprus last September, the taxi driver picked us up from the airport and we passed a bus stop. If you're getting the bus in Cyprus, you're going to be waiting for maybe hours, which is the first thing. And it was like blazing sun midday. And there was a load of like, they were quite clearly like migrant workers, clearly just like wanting to go to work or whatever. And he was basically said in Greek, like, oh, these black people coming to Cyprus, like, what are they doing here? Like, they're trying to take over, all of this stuff. And I mean, I won't say what I replied, but, had to give him a bit of an education. But yeah, it's really like...
And it's more common like than we think. And we like to paint ourselves, like, to be honest, I'm going to be real right now. A lot of Cypriots, they paint themselves as like caring about human rights and social justice, but only when it pertains to them. I've heard Cypriot diaspora in the UK rightly talking about how they're marginalised and they're treated different in the UK, and how things like Brexit and things can be really like harmful and things for them. But when it comes to maybe migrants or people of colour being in Cyprus, then they don't want people there.
Yeah.
And I don't see how you can't see the hypocrisy about that, because I know a lot of issues with colorism and things like that stem from colonisation, but we need to talk about that and not use that as a justification to carry on being ignorant to other groups. Yeah,
totally. I mean, every Cypriot at some point in their life is going to be othered. Like, you're the other in the UK. If a Cypriot inside, like, if that taxi driver came over here or went on holiday somewhere, he'd be the other there. He might get the same, like, comments about what he was saying about the workers. So you're totally right. Like, it's a shared struggle, and it's not like, it's not only a you problem that only affects you in one particular type of way. It affects everyone in different ways, and there should be recognition of it. Totally. You also are actively involved in Vicinus. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm not, am I?
It's close. Vicinus.
Vicinus. Okay, thank you.
It confuses a lot of people. Yeah.
Vicinus, which is a social action group providing basically a helping hand to our neighbours in Cyprus and abroad, which is so lovely that that's happening for people kind of on the island. Again, like, why is that a necessary thing that we need to be doing, especially particularly for a part of the diaspora helping Cyprus?
So with Vicinus, it was initially called the Humanitarian Aid Programme, and it was founded by myself and two other students, one from Nigeria and one from Libya. And it was when I was a student in Cyprus, and we visited a refugee camp in Kofinou. And we saw the dire conditions there, and we were shocked that it wasn't in the news at the time. It was 2016. And we wanted to do something small to help, like collect donations for clothes and food. We asked people living there what would they like. They want the little kids there wanted a basketball to play, because they couldn't leave the camp. Yeah. And like, imagine you're trapped there and you can't do anything fun. And just something like a little thing like that, we wanted to help, and that's how it initially started. And we started growing more and more, and we expanded to migrant rights, refugee rights, also education. We do like videos and things like that. Women's rights is a key, because everything's intersectional and everything intertwines. Yeah. And we noticed that a lot of the women at the camps were suffering in different ways, and LGBT rights as well, and child rights issues. But we also do like a general umbrella of humanitarian issues. And we started doing things like an online gender conference where we collaborated with the Mediterranean Institute for Gender Studies, and the directors of there spoken on our conference, and we invited young people who started doing their own personal research on gender issues in Cyprus and abroad, to present their research in like a really nice place with great people to listen to their research. Just things like that. We did an online concert for refugees and to raise money, and that was so incredible. We had performers from like Jamaica, Nigeria, Palestine.
Wow.
Once we turn more to online, we can attract people from around the world to learn about Cyprus and to actually help people in Cyprus. So it was an incredible thing. And that's relating it to the question. Sorry, I waffle a lot.
That's
sometimes.
okay. It's not waffle at all.
That's utilization of social media and online sphere is so important, especially for people like myself who have chronic health issues. We can't always attend the events or be present, and it just creates a new form of accessibility when all you have to do sometimes is just log on and just, you don't even have to speak, just listen to a conversation or watch a video of educational content regarding human rights. So again, I really want to hone in accessibility and utilize social media in a way that is easy to read, keeps people engaged, but not do it so it becomes almost like to get people to look at and get views, but not actually deeply.
Oh yeah, not just for it to like be viral and a trend and like that's it. Yeah.
Because I have noticed some people are just saying controversial things just to get views and things.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to go.
No, it is not. No, it is not. And it happens a lot with Cyprus.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't name the organisations or the pages that do that. No. That's really amazing, and I couldn't agree more with accessibility. That's maybe one of the, or if not the only, like, beauty of the pandemic, where everyone had to look virtually to how we can do things, and it just makes things so much easier. And like you said, it's a global reach. Like, people from all over the world can just click a link and join, which is really amazing.
It was crazy because we had interns with Vicinus, and I was like, oh no, I can't like see you in person. So we completely changed the way we worked, and we went online, and we actually managed to get interns from Pakistan and other places that were interested in helping Cyprus as well. And it was really cool because before it wasn't as diverse as it could be.
Yeah.
And now it's more a reflection of what Cyprus looks like. Cyprus is more multicultural than ever. And there tends to be a focus on the phrase bi-communal, and in some spaces that is very much needed because there is still like some differences that need to be resolved.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people, I've spoken to people, including some members of my team in Bubalau, that feel that they're not adequately represented or not welcome in a lot of spaces. And they have actually advised me that we use the phrase intercommunal from now on. And I think that's really, really important for people that may want to start their activism as well. Intercommunal is a really important phrase to start like looking at deeply and actively using in real life. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, like you said, bi-communal is really important, especially when we think about it bi-communal with Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, because a lot of work needs to be done still, and it's very relevant in a lot of areas. But I'm trying to like reframe myself to use like intercommunal or multi-communal or something like that. I think that's really important. What are some of the ways that young people can get involved in the kind of activist space, to do with Cyprus or not? You know, they might think one day, I want to get involved in this initiative, but I don't really know how to access it. What would you say to encourage young people to be active in it?
I would say find a cause that you're really, really passionate about. Don't do something just to tick off something on your CV, even though that it can be a great way to improve your CV. Do something that you want to be part of and watch it grow and evolve for a long time. And that could be, it doesn't have to be a big thing. I know someone that helped contribute for Vicinus, where they helped maybe once a month create a post for us.
Yeah.
Also be realistic with your expectations and your time, because a lot of the time it's voluntary based and you won't necessarily get paid. So make sure that you actively ensure that you have the right amount of time available to commit yourself to these things, because I know a lot of people, they're like, yeah, let's do it, and then they don't respond to messages anymore, or they don't want to get involved anymore. So maybe do a trial period and just say, I just want to try it out and see if I can volunteer and help. or just say, I can just help when I can and not commit myself to a few hours, and then you'll see if you like it or not.
Yeah, totally. I think that like really simple, like practical advice is needed, because that's often where the barrier first begins, where people are like, oh God, I have all this passion about something, I want to do it, but I don't really know how. So yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. What's your favourite way to foster Cypriot community?
Ooh, okay. My favourite way is I would say, this sounds really random, but I like to do some, like, join in the hashtags on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there was an issue with Varosha.
Yeah.
And I was looking at what all the communities were writing, and I noticed there was a trending hashtag in different languages, which I thought was incredible. And I like to get involved with these, not trends, but they are on Twitter, so I can see what they're saying. And like filter out the comments and things like that, and then put my voice in once I've read everything else. I think that's a great way to foster community.
Yeah, you're very good on Twitter. That's one thing I've noticed about you. You're always like active and like, yeah, I'm not good on Twitter at all, so I need to take a leaf out of your book. Yeah, you always know the right hashtags to use. And
the great thing to do is just follow people that you're resonating with, and you'll start noticing patterns because then on Twitter, for example, they say suggested to follow.
Yes.
Once you start doing that, it becomes like a big wormhole, but you end up being like, oh, everyone's using these hashtags, let's go with it.
Yeah, totally. What's your hope for Cyprus, and particularly the Cypriot youth?
My hope for Cyprus is that we stop boxing ourselves and limiting ourselves in how we keep, and I understand the reasoning behind it, but we keep saying what's done is done for Cyprus. We can't do anything for it. We might as well just stay the way it is. And I feel like my hope for Cyprus is that we have a renewed inspiration and hope for our futures. The economy is not doing so great at the moment. Yeah. There's not many job prospects. People are highly educated and they're forced to leave.
Yeah.
In the north, there's issues with like electricity. Human rights are being violated, especially right now with the free speech protocol coming in and things like that. My hope is that we do not let these like human rights violators win, and we stick together. For example, as Greek Cypriots, we have a responsibility right now to stand up and speak for Turkish Cypriots, because at some point they may not be safe to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So my hope is that we also like find the bravery, because it is a brave thing to do, and speak
it's super
up
brave.
When it's difficult and when sometimes it's not safe to do so. And I want that to be reciprocated across the board.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's really lovely, and I couldn't agree more. If we all get a bit more brave and start speaking up for each other, I think that will do the world a load of good. I wanted to talk to you about Eurovision, which I know isn't really related, but this is I think this is one of the reasons how Phoebe and I bonded, is because we would always talk about Eurovision and we love it. Why is Eurovision important for you in terms of your Cypriot identity?
Oh, okay. So I actually have a family member that represented Cyprus 3 times for Eurovision.
Who?
Evridiki.
Ah, okay.
And she's quite known in Greece and Cyprus.
Yes, yeah.
And when I found this out, I was like, what? It's my mum's cousin.
No way.
And I was like, there was a reason why I'm so obsessed with Eurovision.
Yeah, it's in your blood, literally.
Yeah. But apart from that, I think Eurovision is a really cool place to showcase your country. And when it's not done accurately, or people are not feeling fairly represented, which I know a lot of community members are not, and rightly so, to be honest, it saddens me that we're not making the most of this opportunity, because we could put Cyprus on the map in such an incredible way if we had the right to do so. We don't really get the chance to choose who's going to represent Cyprus. And that's why I think Eurovision is really cool, but right now Cyprus isn't making the most of it. But I do want to say, Fuego.
Oh, iconic.
Eleni
Fuera is my queen. I'm obsessed with her.
I still play the song all the time.
Probably like weekly for me, 100%. Yeah, she's amazing. No, I totally agree. Like, a lot of work needs to be done. I think they should put us on the board of on RIC, CYBC is it called? The Eurovision board, and we'll find some homegrown talent. I think that's what Cyprus needs. There's a lot of homegrown talent.
Do you know what I would love? I would love to see like an intercommunal performance.
Yeah, that'd be so
We'd
nice.
have a mixture of Turkish, Greek speaking, or Arabic maybe,
Yeah.
like just like different, like all connected into one. I think that would be such a cool performance, and all of us wearing our traditional clothes,
Yeah.
and just showcasing who we are. I would think do a mixture of folk and pop. That would be the perfect combination.
We'll pitch it for next year. We'll see what they say. I have one question left for you, which I ask all of my guests, and that is, what's your favourite thing about your Cypriot roots?
My favourite thing, there's two.
That's fine. Okay. You can tell me as many as you want.
Okay. My first favourite thing is I am so inspired by the incredibly strong and brave Cypriot women throughout history that don't get the recognition they deserve. First of all, they've been the ones at the forefront of the protests.
Honestly,
making history.
Yeah, I've seen those pictures from the 1950s of the women at the front of the protests, just like carrying the country on their shoulders.
Literally.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, you know, our yayas and nenes, they are...
Shout out to the ARs. My AR's here.
Oh, hello. They are literally the foundation of the family. They're so strong, and it's so inspirational. And it's such a difference for me, like, compared to my English side of my family.
Yeah.
To see how strong my yaya it's so inspirational, and it makes me feel empowered as a woman, and I love that for Cyprus. Honestly, I do.
We stand the ARs so much. We stand them hard.
And obviously the second one is the food, the culture, but how incredibly diverse and unique it is. And how so many different cultures are like, they see a bit of us in Cyprus.
Yeah.
I love how connected we are to so many different places, and that's what I love about being Cypriot.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's two really, really amazing things. Thank you so much for coming on.
You.
This has been so nice. It's been so nice to meet you in real life, finally, and to chat to you in a bit more depth about you and all the work you do. You're doing such great stuff, and Cyprus and Cypriots are better off for the work you do. If people want to find you or Babalau or Vicinus, where can they find you?
For Vicinus, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn as well, and Instagram. And you just type in, for example, Facebook, just Vicinus CY. And for Bubble Out, because we're fairly new still, we're on Instagram and Facebook. And for Instagram, it's Bubble Out CYP. And I think that's the same for Facebook as well. And I wanted to say thank you so much. I'm really inspired by your podcast. I think they're incredible.
Oh, thank you.
And you give a voice to so many people. And best podcast ever.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to the Cypriot Wine Festival and Business Expo for the incredible opportunity. I can't wait to be back. I hope you enjoyed this and all of the conversations from the festival with my wonderful guests. I'll tag anything mentioned in this episode on Instagram and Twitter. You can find us on both at Route to Vine Pod. Please don't forget to give us a follow and get involved in the conversation. You can also leave us a rating and review. It really does help us. I've been Maria Christodoulou. This podcast is produced by In-Depth Creative and music is by Dunya. See you on the next episode. Bye.